Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the June Strengthening Families Networking webinar. My name is Kaylin O'Connor from the Center for the Study of Social Policy. I'm pleased to co-host this webinar each month with our partners at the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds, and excited for our focus today, which is on messaging the protective factors. So I will get us started here. I will share a couple updates from the Center for the Study of Social Policy, and actually I forgot to take it off the agenda, but Martha will not be sharing general updates from the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds, as we'll hear from them a little bit later. And then we're going to focus in on messaging the protective factors. So first we're going to hear from Maureen Holliker in Northern Michigan about some posters that many of you have seen, many of you have used, but also some new ones that have been developed. And then we're going to hear about the Need to Know Protective Factors handouts that are being developed by the Alliance's National Parent Partnership Council. So Kara Georgi and Lucretia Rose are here to talk about that. And then we'll have some time at the end for you to ask questions about their processes for developing these materials, or tell us about things that you've done in your own states and communities, and just talk in general about this this exciting challenge of how we talk about the protective factors, particularly when we want to reach a wider audience and not just the professionals who work in our field, but how we can actually reach parents with that. So thanks for joining us today. We were excited to see the level of interest as many people registered for this webinar, and we're excited to dive in. So I'll just share a couple of updates from CSSP. We convene these webinars each month. It's always a focus on some topic related to strengthening families and implementation of the protective factors framework, but we range widely from policy to practice to evaluation and to other initiatives going on in early childhood that have a connection to strengthening families. We always bring in a topic, a guest speaker related to that topic, or a panel of folks who have something to share, and we always welcome your suggestions of topics as well. You can find the recordings from these materials, recordings and materials from these webinars at a Google site that the Alliance maintains. The link is there. We also always link to that in the monthly Strengthening Families newsletter. And anytime you register for the webinar, whether you participate or not, you will get an email afterwards that gives you a link just to the recording on GoToWebinar, and then you can go to this Google site where the slides and other handouts are posted as well. So we do this on the second Thursday of each month. Coming up the next one will be on July 12th, and we're going to do that as a technical assistance clinic. We've done that a few times in the past and always gotten some good questions and good conversation going. So the idea is that if you're out there in the world using Strengthening Families, you might have some questions about how to reach a particular audience, how to implement in a particular type of program, how to manage your leadership team from different sectors, any of those kind of questions that come up. Or you might have a more philosophical question about, what does parent engagement really mean in certain contexts? And so we want an opportunity for not only for you to ask those questions and get them answered, but to get a conversation going with other people in the network. So whatever questions you might have, you can submit them when you register for this webinar, or you can send them by email to me in advance, or you can ask them during the webinar itself. The benefit of asking in advance is that I can make a slide that has relevant resources on it. I can make sure someone will be on the webinar who I think will have a good answer to that question, and do a little more prep work, but we'll try to include time for some questions that just come up during the webinar as well. And in addition to asking questions, I hope you'll also be ready to answer some other people's questions, because if someone's asking about how to work with incarcerated parents, for example, you might have some really good information to share about that, and I hope that you will jump in with that answer. So please join us on July 12th for that technical assistance clinic and send in your questions so that we'll have a really rich conversation. In August, we're actually not going to hold the webinar due to it being August and a lot of people being on vacation, but we will jump back into things with the second Thursday of the month as we get back into the fall. So those topics will be announced, and as I mentioned earlier, let me know if you've got topics or if you have some content that you would like to share on one of these webinars, and we'll get you onto that schedule. So some of us were just on a planning call about a conference that's coming up this fall. The first time we've done this conference. It's called Together for Families, Strong Families, Promising Futures. It'll be October 15th through 17th in Cleveland. The main conference will be the 16th and 17th. We'll have a pre-conference day with some day-long trainings available on October 15th. Co-hosted by my organization, the Center for the Study of Social Policy, with the National Family Support Network and the Greater Cleveland Family Support Network. Family Strengthening Network. So we'll have 3 strands that run through that conference about strengthening families, about the standards of quality for family strengthening and support, and about family support as a field in general. We have a call for proposals out right now, which you can see at the National Family Support Network's website, and we're accepting proposals through July 13th. Hope that we'll get a lot of interesting ideas for conference sessions, and the Strengthening Families track, we'll be looking for sessions that get at some of those same questions I mentioned for the Technical Assistance Clinic, really sharing experience that you've had that others could benefit from. And if you have a topic that you're not sure warrants a full session, I would be happy to help connect you with some other folks in other states who want to share information on the same topic. So reach out, let me know if you'd like me to do some matchmaking for a co-presenter, or submit a proposal, and if it looks like it matches well with something that someone else suggested, we might put you together into a session and you can figure out how to share that time and merge your content. I should also let you know that registration will open next week, so if you've got some of those fiscal year 18 dollars to spend by June 30th, this could be a way to do it. Get yourself registered for the conference in advance. And of course, registration will be open through the summer and into the fall. But we do anticipate that it might fill up, so we hope that if you're hoping to attend, you'll be able to register before too late, and we'll keep you updated through these webinars and other communications if it starts to fill up. So lots of excitement around this conference, the first time in a few years that we've been able to bring together a lot of strengthening families, interested people, and joining it with family support networks from around the country and the Greater Cleveland Family Strengthening Network as a host. So we're excited for it. I hope you are too. And I wanted to also share, I know a lot of us are concerned right now about the dividing families that's happening at our borders. And while this is not directly related to our Strengthening Families work, CSSP does a lot of work on federal policy, including immigration policy. So I wanted to share 2 briefs we put out, one last spring when the Department of Homeland Security started talking about this as a potential strategy they might use, and one just in May of this year when it became clear that that strategy was, or policy was being implemented. So if you're looking for some of the, some sources to cite and some of the child well-being arguments against these policies, please go to our website, cssp.org, and you'll see the most recent one is listed right at the top of our webpage, and the other one is linked from that if you're interested in that. So I know that's an issue that many of us are concerned about, and it can be difficult to know what we can do, but knowing the facts, knowing the arguments can be very helpful, so look those up if that's an issue of concern to you. With that, we're going to move into a more fun topic about messaging the protective factors. I'm very pleased to welcome as our first presenter, Maureen Holliker. She is from Great Start Collaborative in Charlevoix, Emmett, and Northern Antrim counties in northern Michigan. I've been there. It is a beautiful area. And Maureen's posters have traveled the world, have been used so many places. She's going to talk about the process they've used to develop them and the content that's on them. So Maureen, I'll hand off to you.
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Thanks, Kaylin. As Kaylin said, my name is Maureen Holliker. I'm the Great Start Collaborative Director in Charlevoix, Emmett, and Northern Antrim counties in Michigan. So if you're not from Michigan, this is the very tip of the mitt, and the Great Start Collaborative is an early childhood collaborative. So we are one of 54 collaboratives throughout our state. This is a group photo of our early childhood collaborative and some of the folks that have been in the forefront of working on our messaging campaigns for strengthening families' protective factors. Also our social emotional competence messaging campaign, and then also Youth Thrive. So I'm going to take a few moments to take us through those different campaigns and let you know kind of the process of how we did this. You can go to the next slide, Kaylin. Okay, great. So many of you may be familiar with the first messaging campaign that we put together for parents around the protective factors. It's called What Makes Your Family Strong. We began this campaign in, I think, around 2012. And at the time, we had really just been exposed to the information on strengthening families and the protective factors. And there were not that many materials out at that time. And so we were so excited about implementing this in our community that we wanted to create a messaging campaign for parents that was strength-based, colorful, and bold. So we took the national language from CSSP, and with the help of parents and professionals in our area, we added adapted language that we felt got to the heart of the meaning of each of the protective factors. So you can see up here we have a What Makes Your Family Strong poster that really kind of talks about the framework of strengthening families and each of the protective factors. For parental resilience, we said exercise flexibility and develop inner strength. Resilience makes your family strong. The second one, social connections, just really simply make a friend. Connecting with friends builds a support system and makes your family strong. Knowledge of parenting and child development, learn to be your child's expert. We really wanted parents to feel like they didn't have to be early childhood experts, that they really needed to be the expert on their own child. And to give that empowerment. So being a great parent is part natural and part learned. Parent education makes your family strong. And then concrete support in times of need, asking for help. And social emotional competence of children. And this was a huge topic and is a huge topic. And so at the time that we had done these posters, we really felt like giving your child words to express how they feel, teaching your child to effectively communicate and interact builds positive relationships and makes your family strong. And so we felt, although that was a big topic, that really kind of got to the heart of it. And so we were really excited about these materials. If you know anything about the area that I live in Michigan, it's very small. So we really just created these for our community. And so we were both thrilled and surprised that our messaging campaign gained attention across the country. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Thanks, Kaylin. First, we were contacted by Parent Services Project in California, who asked us if we had our posters in Spanish. And although we did not, I offered to them if they were able to translate the posters, we could send the translation to our graphic artists and that they would just have to pay for the time of the graphic artist. So, and then we were once again contacted by First Five of San Francisco, and they inquired whether we had the posters available in Chinese. So we again offered that if they wanted to go ahead and translate the posters, we would have our graphic artist create the posters in Chinese. And so the 6 original posters are now available in both Spanish and Chinese. And I can't speak to the translation, but as far as I know, I think they're right. So we appreciate the collaborative effort of those agencies in translating the materials, and it was a great process. You can go to the next one. So about a year after our first campaign, discussions with parents led us to create a poster that would help both parents and professionals remember what each of the protective factor was on their hand. And so the idea of this poster was sparked by parent discussion, and the creation of the poster was done in partnership with the parents. And so basically we had been implementing strengthening families and the protective factors in our community. They had dominated conversation with parents, but when we had conversations with parents, we found that they struggled to remember each of the protective factors. And so that's how the idea of the hand came up. So we use thumbs up to remember social emotional competence of children, index finger to remember knowledge of parenting and child development. Your middle finger helps you remember social connections because it should never stand alone. Our ring finger is our commitment finger. So that reminds us of parental resilience. And then the pinky finger signifies concrete support in times of need, because everybody needs help sometimes. So in partnership with the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds, we were able to have this poster also translated into Spanish. And so now this poster is available in both English and Spanish. You can go ahead and go to the next one. Thank you. So in 2015, we created a spin-off campaign called Build a Stronger You. And this campaign is based on the 5 social-emotional learning competencies. We created this campaign because we felt the protective factor of social-emotional competence of children was such a vast topic that it needed a messaging campaign in and of itself. These posters were created in partnership again with parents in our local behavioral health collaborative. And as you can see, they are aimed for a younger demographic, early childhood providers and parents. One of the things that we have since done with these posters are choose books that align with each of these competencies: self-management, self-awareness, responsible decisions, and be able to work with preschool teachers on talking about this competency and then go ahead and reading the book and sharing those materials with parents. Next slide. Our most recent messaging campaign is based on CSSP's Youth Thrive Protective and Promotive Factors for Healthy Development and Well-Being of Youth. These posters were developed in collaboration with our local Children's Behavioral Health Collaborative again, and funded by a grant through the Health Department of Northwest Michigan and SAMHSA. Local youth from a Youth Advisory Committee and our local community foundation, and also youth from our local diversion school, were pivotal in creating the language that you see on this messaging campaign. And you can see with the, this is also part of that Build a Stronger You campaign, and you can see with positive social connections, that's actually a local photo in our area. We had hoped to have local photographs on each of the posters, but time just did not allow that, and so we needed to move forward. So some of these are stock photos, but we tried to pick photos that you know, didn't look like they were so much stock photos. So each of these Youth Thrive posters is mirrors the protective factors for parents, and so I'm going to let Kaylin go through the slides and just show you, because you may have not seen these before, a close-up look of each one of them. So this gives you, this photo right here gives you an idea of what our process looks. It's actually, our process is much messier than this, but you can see on the left-hand side, this is me on my computer just kind of trying to come up with an idea of what this might look like. And then I send that idea to the graphic artist, and they put something together, and then I take that to our group and to the youth, and we talk about the language and the different look of how that's going to be. And then maybe we get a rough draft, and folks are saying, oh, I don't like this font, let's change this. And so you know, it probably looks relatively simple here. It's a long process. It can be frustrating, but I would say that the more eyes that you have on it, the better it becomes. And in the same vein, everybody has an opinion, so eventually you probably have to put on the brakes and say, you know, we are where we need to be, because you could change them. I go back and I look at the original posters that we created, and there's all sorts of things I would like to add and change to them. So, so let's take a closer look at each of the Youth Thrive posters. Here's the Resilience, Build a Stronger You, Survive and Thrive. And some of this language here with the check marks are specific to what the youth in our agencies that I talked about came up with. So stand up for what is right, bounce back and transform, take healthy risks, and don't give up. And go to the next one. Here we are, positive social connections build a stronger you. Get connected and stay connected. Spend time with family, make friends, get involved in school, and build community. Know thyself. So this is the knowledge, understanding yourself and understanding others. Explore who you are, adjust and accept changes, gain independence, expand your sense of community. Concrete support in times of need. Everyone needs help sometimes. We are all in this together. Ask for help when you need it. Stand up for yourself and others, and give help when it is needed. Thinking and feeling. So this is kind of the social emotional competence. Knowing your mind, knowing your heart. Plan for your future. Be creative in problem solving. Recognize your emotions. Empathize with others' emotions. And just to note that my work centers around an early childhood collaborative, and so Youth Thrive wasn't necessarily in the age range of what we normally work with, but as part of our behavioral health collaborative, they were moving towards wanting some kind of messaging campaign for youth that was strength-based. And we were able to, as a collaborative, come in and say, you know, look at these protective factors campaign that we've created, look at this framework, you know, Youth Thrive goes with this. And so in efforts to create common messaging and a common language of strength-based theory and strength-based approach to working with both families and children. We just didn't want to miss that opportunity to make sure that we were all kind of talking about the same thing. The use of our messaging campaigns and posters don't really stop at just hanging them up on the wall. We find many creative ways to include them in everything that we do as a collaborative in a parent coalition. We put them in our family resource guide. We have created a folder where we hand out all sorts of parent education at our early childhood education nights. We have made a What Makes Your Family Strong Protective Factors guide that we give out both to parents and providers and at education conferences. And we have created a website around strengthening families in our What Makes Your Family Strong campaign, including also giving out Strengthening Families awards. I will say that, and I think it's important to say that, you know, we consider both CSSP and the Alliance as major collaborative partners in creating these campaigns. We have received, you know, input and feedback and approval from both of these organizations, as they are really the leaders in the Strengthening Families Protective Factors work. And so, you know, we really greatly appreciate their help and support in making this all happen. So, and they've spent many of hours and gotten many emails from me over the years in thinking about these. So we're more than happy to share our work with all of you if you're interested. If you're interested in having any of these posters printed, you can visit our website at www.whatmakesyourfamilyststrong.org. And from there, you'll find a link to our local printer, which is Mitchell Graphics. So if you go to our website, in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a gray box that talks about printing. It's going to take you to a Mitchell Graphics site. And we've chosen to offer these posters through just this one printer so that we can assure really the originality and the integrity of the posters. Although the posters cannot be altered, Mitchell Graphics may offer you an option to add your logo so that your community can contact you for local information. Our collaborative, just so you know, this is not a sales pitch by any means. We're not receiving any money for the printing of the posters that you may order. Full disclosure, they may offer us future discounts on our printing needs, but we're not profiting on the posters in a monetary kind of way. They just set up the storefront, so if you go to this link, it's brand new and it still needs some changes and edits. but we have gotten so many requests over the years on the printing of these materials that we decided with the printer to go ahead and set up this storefront so it would be easier for folks to order posters. I don't know necessarily how many quantities they're offering, if there's minimums or any of that. We haven't really gotten into the nitty-gritty with them on that, but the contact here at the printing company is Julie Widoff, and so she'll be able to help you with that. On the same note of being happy to share these materials with you, I will say that the process of going through and creating these campaigns with both my collaborative and the parents and the youth in our community has been really remarkable and has increased my knowledge of these protective and promotive factors, increased the knowledge of our collaborative, and definitely has helped us message them because it has really come from an organic place of building them. So we're happy to share the materials, but I wouldn't discourage any of you from creating your own, and I know many of you probably already have. So again, thanks to Kaylin and Martha for all of your support and offering us the opportunity to share our work. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Maureen. A couple people were typing in comments as you went, so I'll just read those. We actually answered the questions that came up, which were about whether they're available in Spanish and how to get these posters. But there were also a couple other comments I wanted to share. Just Maureen O'Brien commented, the hand adaptation is awesome, great memory tool. And Maureen O'Brien also commented, I think the evolution of the poster shows how important it is to add specific tips. And I thought that was cool to see the progression of where you started and the modifications along the way, and how you did get more specific as you went. So, and a couple other people typed in thank you. Tammy Sandoval wrote, so smart, right on, Maureen.
Tammy has created great posters in her own community. And you know, I should add, I haven't had an opportunity to get them back from the graphic artist yet, but we're fortunate enough to live in a community where we have a Native American population, and we have just had the posters translated into that language. So we're excited to share those eventually. Oh,
that's great. Wonderful. We did get one more question. One more comment from Catherine Ramirez said, we utilize these posters in Connecticut and love them. And then Maren Goodsell asked whether the booklets on the right-hand side of this slide are available. I think she probably means the folders. Is that something the printer does?
Yeah, so she may be talking about the What Makes Your Family Strong Protective Factor Guide. And so that guide is very specific to our area, but the printer did make a more generic version of that book. And although you may not see it on the website, you can email Julie, Julie Woodhoff, and her information is there. And you could add some of your flyers in that book and go ahead and have them print it. The folders are not available through the printer. That's just something that I had done at a promotional company. And so if people are interested in that, we can certainly talk to Julie and see if she can make those for us.
Thank you so much, Maureen. I love how open you are to sharing these things, and those posters have certainly helped us all advance the conversation, and I use these posters in my own presentations about protective factors just to have something beautiful and visual and in parents' words as we dive into talking about each protective factor. So thank you.
That's awesome. And, you know, we appreciate all the comments so much. You know, as coming from such a rural area in Michigan, my community is really kind of tickled that we've created something that has gained national attention. So it's very fun. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. So we're going to get into the next section of our presentations, and we'll have some time at the end for more discussion as well. So Maureen, we may be coming back to you, but let's move into hearing from the Alliance National Parent Partnership Council. So I'm very pleased to welcome Kara Georgi and Lucretia Rose, who are the co-chairs of the Alliance National Parent Partnership Council, and Martha Reeder, who is the Alliance liaison to the ANPPC as a senior associate at the Alliance. They have been doing a lot of great work around messaging, among other things, and so they're going to dive in. I'll hand it off to you three.
Okay. Thank you, Kaylin. This is Martha. Welcome everyone to our sharing time this afternoon. We're very excited to share with you the work that we've been doing. Can we go to the next slide? This is a big welcome from the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds, otherwise known as the Alliance, which is a membership organization for children's trust funds across the country. We provide training and technical assistance and just all sorts of tools and strategies to help unify the children's trust fund so that all the work that we do has a greater impact. We have had a great commitment to the protective factors, and we have developed many resources around the protective factors, including an online training and an in-person training. And quite a few of the parents on our council are certified trainers for our in-person training. And so let's get right to the council members. And I would like to let Lucretia Rose share with us more about the council itself.
Thank you, Martha. The parents at the ANPPC wanted to show what it really looks like to partner with parents by modeling that at a national level. And the council is a place where parent leaders can build upon and expand the work that they're already doing within their state's children's trust funds and their own communities, but take that to the next level and have a larger impact. And so the next slide will show you some goals that we have as a council. And these goals really lead our work into our everyday actions. We strive towards these goals as a council in each little thing that we do. And so those three big goals are actively advising the Alliance on their action planning and developing parent partnerships. And so that may mean that we have a parent on each different committee, like a policy committee and a membership committee. And so each committee we strive to try to have a parent on each one of those. And then developing a body of knowledge on parent partnerships and promising innovative means for sharing meaningful and authentic parent voices. And so, for example, we took some of the everyday actions from the logic model of the Strengthening Families Protective Factor framework and created a survey that Carol talked to you a little bit more about, and we created some tools from that. And then we like to strive to develop a parent partnership plan for the Alliance that impacts all the work that they do. And an example of doing that is that Kara and I are involved in helping the Alliance create their new theory of change. We like to say nothing about us without us, and we like to try to model exactly what that looks like as being a true parent partnering with people at their table. So now Carol will tell you a little bit more about us and where we're from.
Thanks, Lucretia. And so we are a national group of parent leaders, and this map kind of gives you a visual image of each of us, and there's 9 of us on the council. And so we literally do most of our work in a virtual format through email. We have monthly meetings where we'll talk to one another, and then we get very creative in our collaborative efforts because, as you see, we have multiple time zones that we have to work within. So that way we'll be able to have work happen both on the East and West Coast simultaneously. And so it's a great opportunity for us as parents, and then also with the Alliance staff that is also spread across the nation. And so important piece of that, if you think about all of us coming from these different perspectives and states, is we needed a foundation. And so on the next slide, you'll see something that you just saw with Maureen. And it is one of her great posters that we've really come to appreciate just because of how it really resonates with us as parents. And what we felt was important for us to be able to do work is we need to have a common foundation. And so we knew that the protective factors and the strengthening families work was essential to the work that we were going to do together and collaboratively on a national level. And so what we have done is taken time for our entire group to go through the Alliance's online training, and not just go through it on our own, but take that time individually and then take some time to collectively talk about what it is that we read and saw and what resonated. And it really led to some lively discussions, and we recently added some new members and we're having those same opportunities happen with them, so that way, again, it gives us that foundation that's so important for people to have when they're trying to do some great work. And so Martha will kind of talk a little bit more about why we started on this path.
Thanks, Kara. As I was working with the council, and we brought on quite a few new members several years back, and there was a great desire. It was obvious that they wanted to create something that would have an impact and something that they could share with other parents. And they readily recognized that they needed some more preparation before they would be able to do that. And this led to what Kara was describing, in that they determined that they would study all 7 courses of the Alliance Online Training and over a period of a year. And what we did was we spent that month, we would designate what course we were going to study. We would come back on to our monthly call and spend a portion of our call discussing a sort of a seminal piece or scenario from the training towards the end of each course, and it brought on some great conversations. It allowed everyone to build that the language they could discuss what they were thinking about in a very solid way, and really brought so many great insights to me as well. And it was a very fulfilling time. And then the parents decided that they were ready to begin this work of creating some messaging and some tools, and that it would be grounded in the research around the protective factors. And I think that we're going to share with you what we did create in the next slide.
And so on this slide, you'll see need to know. We decided when we wanted to create tools, we really needed it to be captured in some way, and it kind of talked a little bit about how Maureen shared. We wanted there to be a strong message that resonated and tied everything together. And so we decided the tools would be identified with this need to know tag, and they're really short and concise tools. We figured it would be a great opportunity for parents to realize that they are doing some really great things with their families, and help them to recognize and understand that through some of the great things they're doing, they're building protective factors. And so we really wanted it to be shown through a strengths-based approach, and we felt that that would be really doable, but we wanted to make sure it was more than just the group of us who was getting this data. And so we'll give you an example on the next slide. When we were working for the Need to Know tool about social connections, we again wanted it to be grounded in the research, so we first and foremost had to know the definition, and so that is on every single one of our slides. But what we had to do that was a little bit more challenging was look at the everyday actions from the logic model. And so for this one with social connections, we chose the example of help families build and use social connections. And we really had to kind of ponder, what does that mean? What does that look like? And we had to generate some questions to kind of capture that and get that data. And so 2 of the questions that we generated to try to capture that was, how do your friends know that you appreciate them? And when you plan a social for parents, how do you welcome them and include them? And what we did with those questions is we then put them into a Survey Monkey, and we shared it out across our networks. So with being a part of the National Alliance, we had that ability to share out within their networks. And then us as parent leaders shared it across our networks and in as many places as we could. And that way it was going to be more voices that were coming together. So as you can imagine, doing something like that resulted in a lot of data coming in. And so what we had to do was really process through all of that and look at themes that came out. Lucretia was great with this, of kind of helping us kind of color code and concise things. And so because of our group having so many different strengths and talents, we were able to leverage those to create some great resources. And so you'll see on the next slide what happened from those questions was we generated data. And that data is always captured on the bottom front section of each of our Need to Know tools. And so what we did was we were able to then give parents and families and providers concrete things that they could be doing, and examples where a family could read this and say, wow, I'm doing that. Oh, I'm building social connections. And so is just a great, concise tool that we thought would be helpful for families and communities. In addition to this social connections tool, you'll see on the next slide, we've created a Need to Know tool on the knowledge of parenting and child development. Again, we made sure to capture what the definition of it is. We wanted to make sure it was tied back to the logic model and grounded in the research. And you'll see, again, in that blue bottom section, that's where we captured all that data. And this is one of our latest ones that we're just releasing. And with any tool that you create, we wanted to think about, okay, there's a backside. What could we do that would be powerful on that? And so what we decided to do was leverage the great knowledge base that the National Alliance has and tap into the different translations and the different ways states are doing this work. And so on the backside of every Need to Know tool, we capture different states and highlight different states that are doing some of this great work. On the next slide, you'll see that we've also done the protective factor of parental resilience. Again, same concept. We wanted to keep it consistent so that way there would be a way to tie these tools together. And again, we were trying to make sure that we were coming up with concrete questions we could ask that would give us great data to help parents realize how they're building their parental resilience. And again, on the back side, more translations, more great ideas and resources and websites. And I think that's one of the most valuable parts of these tools is that it's not just a standalone piece on the front, but if you really want to go out and find out more information, there's a variety of resources where you can go to do that. And then the next slide, you'll see the backside to that, social connections. Again, it's all filled in. We make sure that we have the branding, and we try to have a theme go along with it. And so you'll see for this one, we have the birds up on the wire kind of talking to each other. And we work with a graphic artist who's just phenomenal. We always generate the general format, and she has that for us. And then she really challenges us to look at what is the most important data that we need to put on there, and really thinking through, because if you think about that, there's really not that much space. So she challenges us to really process the information and to keep it authentic with what the parents' voices are that are coming back to us. And then she helps us with tweaking size and adjustment of the visuals. And it's a back and forth process and procedure, but we're very fortunate to have her on our team and helping us with that. And lastly, we figured we have all these translation pages, and what better idea than to compile them into one guide. And so what we did was we put together this translation guide that really captures all the great work that we knew of at the time that was happening. Of course, there's many more things that we could add to this guide, but at the time, this is what we had generated. And so it's just great to have a resource where you can go and tap into others who are doing the great work and hear about what's going on across the country to strengthen families and build the protective factors. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lucretia so she can share about a neat other little project we worked on.
Thank you, Kara. I just wanted to add to that the great thing about the translations on the back part of those one sheets are that those translations can help us appreciate and honor family strengths in diverse geographical and cultural settings from all across the country. And so it really does display how diverse and different each protective factor looks in the different states. And so the next slide is, you'll see it's a picture of 3 memes. And so one of the innovative ways that we chose to share the authentic parent voice was through these memes. And so we took each protective factor that we had made those tools for and worked with our graphic artists and come up with these memes. And then in the month of April, we used these memes to bring attention and awareness to Child Abuse Prevention Month and to introduce some of the tools to the public. So we used social media such as Facebook and Twitter to roll out these memes. And you can find these memes at the link listed below. And once you click on that link, and it will take you to our page, and you can use the memes in your own work to tie back to the Alliance's work to where those tools can be displayed. And now Kara will tell you just a little bit more about another tool we made called a parent acrostic.
Thanks, Lucretia. And our goal is really to hopefully get these different tools in the hands of people both in paper format and through social media. And because we are doing parent leadership work, we know that there's a lot of questions and buzz and language that's going around, and we really wanted to kind of change and shift that to, we wanted to talk about authentically partnering with parents. And so we created this acrostic tool to kind of document the resources that you kind of need when you're working with parents, and it highlights some of the key features about like relationship building and having trust and really kind of nurturing the work as it goes, because a partnership, whether it be with parents or anyone, takes time and energy and work, and so we wanted to be able to share with people who are working to partner with parents kind of a concrete thing to be thinking about and wrap their mind around, and the importance of always taking the time to ask a parent if they want to help with something or be a partner in work, because sometimes it's a no, but very oftentimes it's a yes, especially if you can kind of break things out into little pieces. And then on the flip side, we share about the Alliance's 2 parent groups that they have as resources, one being the Alliance National Parent Partnership Council that Lucretia and I are co-chairing, and then also the Birth Parent National Network that is a growing and expanding network of parents that are funded and working with the Casey Family Program. So it's great to know that there's resources that you can tap into and ask questions about if you want to partner more with parents. And we also knew that having something else would be helpful because of that ongoing process of partnering. So on the next slide, you'll see a tool that we still have in kind of a development stage, and it's this question tool that you can use when you're thinking about partnering with parents. We want groups to kind of understand that the work is kind of always ongoing and multi-layered, because as you're working with one parent, you want to be able to build and help their skills to grow and have them kind of progressing, but at the same time you want to be introducing new parents to that group and have it be this ongoing process. And so this is a tool that we're working on to try to help capture some of that, and again to kind of get some of that thinking going and see what we could do to put good resources into your hands. And lastly, on our next slide, you'll see that we're using SurveyMonkey for 3 out of the 5 protective factors. And we found it was working, it was going well, but we really wanted to challenge ourselves to think about what's another way that we can get information from families about what it is they're doing. And we decided that we wanted to do some conversation guides to gather data for the final 2 protective factors. We wanted to be able to know more. And so we are going to be working on kind of polishing up these guides, but we would like to extend a polling question right now, if we could, to the audience. And that question that we're going to ask you is, are you currently partnering with parents who would be interested in participating in a virtual conversation about the protective factors? And if you respond yes, then Kaylin will send us your information, and when we get that process going, we'll be happy to connect with you and let you be a part of this great process that we're doing.
The poll is up on screen, and 40% of people have voted so far, so we can leave it up for another 10 seconds or so, make sure people who want to say yes in particular get their chance to do so.
Great, thanks, Kaylin. And we just figured that sometimes that face-to-face conversation piece can really lend to some authentic conversations. And not only that, but we knew that gathering the data was important, but most importantly, we knew that relationship building in the community was really fundamental. So we're hoping that by doing this work, we'll be able to start building some great community relationships between families. And then for the next slide, you'll see I had recently shared this on my own Facebook page, and it really kind of resonated with me because I started thinking about the work that our group has been doing. And this is what it is said is that 10% of what we learn is what we read, 20% is what we hear, 30% is what we see, whereas 50% is what we see and hear, 70% is what we discuss, 80% is what we experience, and 95% is what we teach to others. And so it really got me thinking about the work that we're doing with the National Alliance about the importance of having it be multi-pronged, multi-layered, and really reaching out to the community. And so I will pass it over to Lucretia to wrap us up.
Thank you, Kara. So how can you access the need-to-know tools? Well, one way is that you can type in the Alliance website at ctfalliance.org/needtoknow.htm, or you can contact any one of us, Kara, George I., Lucretia Rose, or Martha Reeder, to get more information on that. And in the next slide, you'll see we're just going to wrap up with a few things, lessons that we have learned about our process. So one of the lessons that we learned is about what it means to truly partner with parents. I know here in my own state, I do a lot of parent leadership work, and some people will say, yeah, we work with parents, we have them involved, and that might mean to them that they've devised something or created something and they want you to take a look at it to see if it's parent friendly. Here at the Alliance with the ANPPC, partnership really means partnering with parents, not just engagement, but having a hand in everything, from the idea of conception to the delivery of the product, working with people to have a common foundation of language and what that means to different people that you're working with, and really displaying the parent voice across all levels. Also having a strong foundation of that common knowledge that we were talking about, and as Kara explained earlier, that we use the handout of the 5 protective factors, and although each of us were doing work in our states, each one of us were at a different level. So we had to all have a common ground, so we used that protective factor handout to do that. And then clear communication about the processes and steps that are needed along the way in our journey of working together as a parent partnership council. We realized that we need to have clear communication about exactly the process that we're going to take to try to reach the end goal and what steps are needed. We all come from different styles of learning and different backgrounds, and we're spread all across the nation, and so we had to do that to make sure that our process went smoothly. And then just the fact that multiple minds being involved in all phases of the process, whether it be us or have someone come in and help us with things, it made our work so much richer. I mean, just to be able to see in our own work of what each protective factor meant in each one of our own states, it was just phenomenal to really come together and be able to poll other parents and see what that meant to everyone. And so I hope that you refer to our website at the Alliance and use some of our tools in the work that you do in your states. And now I think we're going to turn it over to see if you have any questions. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you so much, Lucretia, Kara, and Martha. Great tools you've been developing, and it's fun to see how they evolve too as you're moving into this new phase of doing some focus groups. It'll be great to see the products that come out of that. So, so far I've seen another comment typed in. Let me pull that up. Maureen O'Brien wrote, Families First in Boston is digging into our parent engagement work this year with a new parent leader initiative. These need-to-know tools are such a help in formulating our ideas. So that's great, Maureen. So glad you came on today so you can apply those right away. And if you'd like to unmute, you could tell us more about how you might envision using those. Or if you want to be unmuted, let me know. We can unmute you from this end on GoToWebinar. If anyone else has a comment or a question, feel free to either raise your hand in the webinar or type in a comment and either say what you want to say or ask to be unmuted. It looks like Maureen is willing to be unmuted, so I'm going to find her on the list here. Alphabetical by first name. There we go. Okay. I'm going to unmute you, Maureen. There you are.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound great.
Fabulous. First of all, this presentation has been phenomenal, content and timing-wise. And I think our challenge is that one of the reasons we really wanted to move our work from parent engagement to parent partnership is we really want, we have a parenting education program that lasts for 3 months, but then we really wanted to live on in the community and to have the parents take an increased role. So they already do that during our program and, co-facilitate parent cafes, We use Strengthening Families as our framework. So my main question, I guess, is the diversity. Our family are mostly people of color, mostly families in under-resourced neighborhoods with low income and low literacy. And I'm just curious how that's been addressed across your various partners.
This is Martha. Are you addressing that question to us at the Alliance with our parent partnership work?
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think that we've striven to have a lot of diversity on our council, so that we see how we can reach those all the different groups that we need to. We have had an opportunity recently to have all of our tools translated into Spanish, and so we hope to be able to do even more of that. And also just the very idea that the conversation guides that we're going to be doing will be the kind of thing that can really reach out into the community. They're much of a community-based group, and they will be facilitated by parents, and ideally with help from a partner that they're partnering with. So you'll see that model of parent partnership in the actual conversations that are facilitated. The conversation guide will have 4 to 5 questions for each protective factor, and then some ways, some ideas for the facilitator for ways that they can facilitate that conversation. And we are just beginning to sort of figure this out ourselves. The guide is completed, but our parents are going to be taking this out in the community, and it'll be a really great way to get really into the grassroots of the community and have these important conversations. So we're excited to see that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is Kaylin. I can jump in on that too. The resources shared today have been from the perspective of the folks involved in those groups, and certainly Maureen Holliker did address not a lot of diversity in the northern Michigan area where those posters were developed. However, if you look at the translations from around the country, there have actually been some really good diverse groups, I believe. Yeah, sorry, the screen is only halfway visible to me. So this slide does show some of the diversity of groups that have gone through a process like this. And so those materials that are available in varying degrees, certainly in the states they're in, but some of them are also available for others to use. Hawaiian Native parents, Alaskan Native parents, the Strengthening Families Illinois group was quite diverse that developed their wording in Chicago. So there has been, I think, really good processes that have taken place in different communities, including diverse groups and groups that were within a community of color, where parents have worked through how they would want to phrase these and what kind of tools they would want to be available to talk to other parents in their community. So I think it's something that many of us are aware of and wanting to be sure that diversity is there, and it is happening locally in different places, which I think is really positive. And we need to make sure that we continue to lift those things up so everyone can see. I think it's fascinating to see that any group of parents that you take these protective factors to, which we've done in different places around the world, as well as very diverse types of groups and locations around America, these protective factors resonate, but the way they might want to express it will come across differently, will present differently. And I think that's really fascinating, and so much depth to what we can learn about the protective factors in those kind of conversations.
Excellent. Thank you.
And, Maureen, one of the other things that we'll be doing as we roll out the conversations is that as each of the parents on our council do these, use the questions, that they created the questions themselves, and as they use this and facilitate these conversations in their communities, they're going to report back to us how that worked, and what population they were working with, and it will help us to make it a tool that can be used in many in a diverse group of people.
Okay, well, we're actually coming up to the end of our hour, and I appreciate Maureen who asked that question, and one other person whose name has currently disappeared from my screen who also typed in a similar question asking about the diversity and different cultural interpretations that might come across in these types of tools. So thanks everyone for asking questions and joining the discussion. And big thanks to Maureen Holliker and Lucretia Rose and Kara Georgia and Martha Reeder, all for sharing the tools that you've worked on that have really helped to advance this conversation all around the country. So thanks everyone, and we hope to talk to you again next month. Send in those questions for the Technical Assistance Clinic and we will talk through it all. So thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great rest of the day.